Right, welcome to the 2025 LSTA Project Management webinar. We're going to go over how to do all of the paperwork, how to track your surveys, your data that you're gathering for the final reports, a little bit about the portal. Have quite a lot going on with that. So let me share my screen. All right, can everybody see our slideshow? All right, here we go. So on our agenda today, we have kind of a large agenda. We're going to go through the website. I'm actually going to take you to the website, show you where everything lives. We'll go over all of the legal documentation that we require prior to getting a grant. I recognize that you have all signed these documents and turned them into us, but as we have some people here that are project managers rather than maybe the same people who created the grant application and signed it, I want to go over the contents of those legal documents because you are responsible for complying with them. So the GIA is our legal document. We've got some information on how to do a project revision or amendment if you need to make changes and when we need to be informed of that and how. I'm going to go over the community grants portal, which is the portal that we use to submit everything. You've already done it, most of you, for the application. You're also going to do it for media reports, final report, and of course your reconciliation and reimbursement, and I will go over what the difference between those two things are. I have a section on the required surveys and where they're located, how to use them, how you're going to aggregate all that information to give it back to us for the final report. IMLS's requirements on publicity, and a quick section of equipment over 10,000, which is at the end of the agenda, but we're going to move it up because Sulin needs to leave, and that's a section that I want to make sure that she's here for. Because it's not something I have the experience yet with. I've been here for 7 months and I want to make sure I've got that information right. I'm not confident that I do. So I want to have her do that section and then talk about records retention. All right, so let's get started here. That doesn't feel like the first page though. I guess it is. Okay. All right, so on the website, we have our LibGuide website here. I'm going to share that window so you can see and switch to that one. Can everybody see the website? Yeah. All right, so this is our website. Up here, the quickest way to navigate, if you go to the LSTA, it's up here under development, but there's links all over the place in all of our documentation. On the left side of the LSTA page, we have our different years. You're still operating in LSTA 2024. If you have a grant that you're working on now, you will still use the LSTA 2024 page for information about your final reports and reimbursements. But basically, it's the same. So we're going to go to the LSTA 2025, and here you will find a section called LSTA 2025 Manage Your Grant. That is the Bible for this project management. So I sent you this 2025 Grants Management Manual in your email. So you have a copy of it already downloaded. If you can't find the email, it's here on the website. Okay. Has everything in it that you need to know. Read it. Please, please read it. It's, I don't know, maybe 20 pages. I know it's a lot, but it really, if you haven't done a grant before, read it all the way through, and I think you'll find that having the big picture of how the entire process works is the best place to start. Okay, so all of these things down the left side here are included here, and we're going to skip to the next slide because I'm going to go through each of these sections as we go through our presentation. All right, so let me switch back to our PowerPoint here. All right. All right, so all of the signature forms that you submitted with your grant, we're going to go through the highlighted ones here real quick. So your assurances and certifications. So the state library receives a contract with IMLS that we have to sign that has all of the LSTA assurances and certifications. We then have created a section of it that applies to our subgrantees because you are also responsible for carrying some of the obligations that we carry. All right, amongst those are this list: non-discrimination, debarment, and suspension. We'll go over both of those. Um, drug-free workplace trafficking in persons, prohibitions against lobbying, certification regarding lobbying activities. We'll skip a couple of them, but acknowledgement of IMLS support and federal support, we have a slide on that, and then a few other things. If you are not the person who signed these forms, if you are not the grant applicant who filled out the grant, if you aren't familiar with the assurances, but you are going to be the project manager, you are responsible for making sure that you have a good knowledge of what is included in here. So those are linked on the website. They'll be on the application page, but the assurances and certifications have been signed by your libraries, but please, please read through it because it's more detailed than what we're going to have an opportunity to go through here. But I'll give it a start anyway. So non-discrimination basically means we are all going to be good humans, two good humans, and make sure that we are following the Civil Rights Act of 1965, no discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin. You have to take steps to make sure that you're following the limited English proficiency policy. Again, another slide in a moment. Section 504, which is our disability law in the United States, Title IX, which prohibits discrimination on the basis of sex, the Age Discrimination and Employment Act, 1975, which also prohibits discrimination, but on the basis of age, and then any other local non-discrimination statutes that we might have in Nevada and locally. So please read through those if you're not familiar with those and how they might work in your library. Become familiar with it. Okay, switch slides. There we go. So the limited English proficiency requires that we have a policy in place on how to not exclude people based on their ability to speak English. Because this is federal money, this applies to us. Down here we have a link to the policy. I'm going to pull that up so that you all can see. And it's linked from our page, from the LSTA page there also. It gives you more information on how to meet the policy that we have established and that is established by federal law. Cillian, how would you describe this? It's a best effort based on, there's four factors that you look at, right, to be able to, so I'm going to let you take that one real quick because you've had more experience with actually putting it into place.
So limited English proficiency, it is, as Alyssa said, it's a balance. We cannot reasonably expect you to make your programs available in every single language spoken by every single person in Nevada. But we do expect you to make efforts to make your programs accessible to those people in your service area who wish to participate in your programs. You are going to be the ones that know what that looks like, right? But if someone who speaks Chinese moves to your area, Mandarin, and their English proficiency is limited and they want to come and engage with your programs, you've got to do something that you've got to make your best efforts to help them participate. I encourage you to look at the policy because it does have that four factor. Every case is going to be unique. We don't get to say no is what this policy is about, though. We don't get to say no unless we've made every effort to embrace everybody. I hope that made sense. If I can I get that little link and put it in chat?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, of course I can't because of.
I got it.
Okay.
Think. Come on, open up.
Yeah. I've been doing this for 10 years and I've never heard of one single instance in which this was a problem.
know that that's
So I
actually
don't
gonna work.
expect it will be a problem for your communities. But if you do have any questions, please reach out to Alyssa and we can help you sort it out.
Sorry, I'm gonna copy and
I
paste
know
this into the chat. Is probably the
it's
easier way to do that.
it's always a struggle with PowerPoints and presentations and links. Sorry, I've derailed us.
That's okay. I will say Windows 11 works nicely with sharing different screens. I'm enjoying having more options for that. Okay, there we go. Oh, but it's not sharing that screen. Let me fix that real quick. There we go. Okay, perfect. So I put the link to our policy in chat. It's also on our oh, there it is. I think you're muted,
There
Sue,
it
but
is.
that's okay.
Sorry.
Yep.
Okay.
No, I forgot that slide was in there. So, all right, we'll keep going here. All right, another important one, debarment and suspension. So we have the obligation in the assurances and certifications that you guys signed or your library signed to make sure that we are not hiring vendors who are excluded under the rules that the federal government has for federal funds being used for vendors. There are oodles of reasons why a vendor may be excluded from it. Fraud. Oftentimes it's a foreign vendor that has been excluded due to, and we have a slide in here, I think, of a couple of Chinese vendors who've been excluded for electronics purchases because of spying activities, and they've been debarred by the Justice Department, things like that. So what we need to make sure that you all are doing is if you hire a vendor with federal money, with the LSTA money, you need to go to this website and search your vendor to make sure that they are not debarred. So let's do Amazon. I'll show you what happens when nothing comes up. Oh, well, okay, so that's not a good one because there's lots of different Amazons. Let's do EBSCO. That's a little more specific. There we go. So when it says no matches found, that's a good result. I think
Point
this
of
is how you spell.
clarification, we do this with all of you.
Yeah.
Yes, so we make sure that people we are giving money to, and that includes subgrantees, are not on the debarment list.
Trying to think of, there's this one here. Okay. So it will come up and it will tell you if you are not allowed to use a vendor. There, I think I spelled that right. There we go. This is an electronics company in China that we are not allowed, the federal government does not do work with. There will be Russian companies, there will be companies that are under various forms of, what's the word when we, well, never mind, we'll just keep going. But when we put sanctions, when we put sanctions on a government, we generally also have federal sanctions that we cannot spend money on companies that are affiliated with their government. So a lot of them are going to be things like that. So there's Sam. This is located here. This is the menu on the left side of the LSTA LibGuide, and debarment and exclusion is right down here, so you can always come back to this link of checking your vendors. Okay, this is a more specific slide about buying electronic equipment from these companies in China. We are absolutely barred from using those. Probably not going to be a problem for any of your grants. All right, lobbying. This one applies to anyone who is taking federal money and using it for a project. IMLS funds cannot be used to pay the salary or expenses of anyone who is acting in a way that advocates or lobbies for specific action. Well, we can't lobby Congress, we can't spend money, we can't put up signs that says, be aware LSTA is going away. We can't do anything like that. If you have any questions about how specifically this applies in your situation, please contact us and run it by us first. We can, as librarians, give information to, if I had a call from one of the assistants to Senator Rosen, and I put on my library hat, my librarian hat, and gave them multiple times, actually gave them information on how LSTA is being used in Nevada, the benefit, the impact, the numbers, the dollars. But what I can't do is I can't sit there and really be an advocate or a lobbyist. So sometimes it's a matter of just giving information is fine, but giving opinion is crossing the line on how we are allowed to interact with this, especially right now when things are, up in the air. Just really, really watch what you say and do, especially on social media. Don't even, as your library, make a comment that could be construed as lobbying. If you have any questions about what this looks like in practice, go ahead and give us a call and we can talk more about it. All right. Something that's really important is acknowledging IMLS on everything that you do. So any printed material, let's see, like Elspeth, your walls for the archives, we'd love to see something, a little sign, a little sticker, something that needs to be permanently affixed to it or removable but consistently there, that has some of the language. We've got this language. Where is it? I think it's on the next page. But this website right here, this link takes you to, I'll just take you to it, goes to the IMLS grantee kit. And there's logos and there's verbiage and here's all of their social media. And it's really great if you tag them. Not great, please tag them in any post that you do on your social media. Please tag IMLS. That is a way of raising awareness besides being required. Required is this much, but this much is awareness. And I'd really love to see as much awareness as we can, because awareness and lobbying are not the same thing. So I feel like Sulin wants to say something.
I do. I want to say something. This question has come up. IMLS credit has to be there for the life, not just for the period of performance, but for the life of your project. As long as your project is out there and going, as long as you're using equipment, 5 years from now, if you're still using the equipment that you buy or the technology you buy, you still need to credit IMLS. We want to, right? We want to make sure when we're not sure if we're going to get funding from year to year, we want to make sure that like the past things that we've done are still being acknowledged, right? So if you've gotten LSTA grants in the past, keep promoting them. 5 years from now, keep promoting your current LSTA grants. Thank you.
All right, gotta find my, there it is. Okay, great. So this is slightly different. You need to acknowledge federal support when you are issuing any kind of press statements, releases, any recording on the radio, anytime that you're going out for bidding, you need to talk about the percentage of the funds that are the percentage of the project that is funded with IMLS funds. So just being consistent with that. We have pages on the website, also in the grant manual, that have more details on that too. All right, SIPA. SIPA is the Children's Internet Protection Act, requires anything that is IMLS purchased and accesses the internet to be SIPA compliant. So that means computers that are filtered. Academic libraries are exempt from this because there's a reasonable expectation that you will not have children accessing your equipment. I would say that could be a slippery slope, though, in terms of if you are doing a project that is like a traveling exhibit or something like that. So anyone that is not SIPA compliant and has an application in for something that is computer internet related, we've already spoken to. So I think we're good on this one for now. All right, now we get to the fun one. So the executive orders that came out in March and April, I believe, apply to your projects. They apply just to your projects. They don't apply to everything in your library if you accept federal money for a project. It's strictly related to the project. So if you have any questions on any of these executive orders and how it might affect your projects, I know some of you here are going to be doing summer reading programs and that sorts of things. So if you have any questions, we have taken a stance that it doesn't, not every single thing like the ending radical indoctrination in K-12 schooling, it talks about specifically promoting, how do I say this without, for example, let's do it this way. I created a rubric for purchasing books. The rubric states that you can buy books that have characters, LGBTQ characters in it. It says that you can't buy books that are like a professional development book teaching how to have LGBT story time in the classroom. Unfortunately, we are having to have some conversations around those areas and trying to find the subtlety of what is allowable and what is not allowable. And we're having those conversations at an internal level also in our own purchasing. And so it's been a bit of a challenge to navigate some of this, but we're trying to be as specific as possible and not do a general blanket of things, if that makes sense. So I would say that I don't feel like any of your projects have anything that we need to worry about at this time. But if you come up against something that might be an issue with any of these executive orders, please give us a call and let's have a conversation. And do me a favor and just read through them. Like each one of them is 4 to 8 paragraphs long. It's not huge amounts of documents, but if you would please read through them, because you are responsible for all of your funded activities, materials, all of your partnerships, that we comply with this. We haven't been hearing of, at least I haven't, and I don't think Celine, you have heard of any enforcement of these or anyone that's having to fight it yet. Now, that being said, that doesn't mean we don't have to comply with it, but it does mean that at this point, it looks like everyone is doing best effort, and that seems to be about where the bar is. So if we could just leave it there, I think we're good, but please contact us if you have any concerns and we'll walk through it together, okay? All right, I'm actually gonna skip because what time is it? Sulin, what time do you need to leave?
About 3:45.
Let's do yours real quick. I'm gonna skip down through it. And then we'll move back to this section on how to things. Okay, this one. This one. All right. For equipment over 10,000, I think we only have one of you in here, maybe two of you that have an equipment over 10,000. that we had to get approval for. There is a limit, and those pieces of equipment require different treatment. And at this point, I'm going to let Sulin take it, and then we'll go
Alyssa,
back.
I don't know if this slide has been completely updated because the bottom says $5,000.
And I left it there because I
Okay.
wasn't sure if it was still that. Yeah, that's why I wanted you to take it, because I
Okay.
wasn't sure as it depreciates. I wasn't sure if it was $5,000 or if the whole thing was $10,000.
Okay, so until this year, the federal government considered anything that cost $5,000 per unit to be equipment, right? Equipment has its own special place in inventory and budgeting and fiscal, right? So we call like computers equipment, but they're not. It's things that are over $5,000. So if you had any of those in the past, as far as I know, that is still considered $5,000. Like if you bought something for $6,000 last year, it's still considered equipment. But we'd have to check. But if you buy anything, it increased to $10,000 for this funding cycle. And from now on until it changes again, it's $10,000. So it's one single thing, like a car would be considered equipment. A big piece of something for your makerspace is going to be equipment. It's $10,000 per item. So you've got to treat it as inventory, and you can't dispose of it without getting our permission. So you keep it for the life of your program, and you keep it for as long as it will work. And if it stops working, you need to contact the state library, whoever is the LSTA coordinator at the time, and tell us you want to dispose of it. And then we'll ask you a whole bunch of questions. You can read about it in the 2 CFRs. If you've asked for equipment this year in your funding recommendations, I'm sure we put something about confirm that you will treat your equipment as equipment and inventory it and do all the proper controls that you and your organization do to manage equipment. Because I know every organization, every entity has its own way of handling it, and we're not micromanaging how you do that. We're just requiring that whatever you do, you include this equipment in with your processes. Does that make sense? Is that what you wanted me to say, Alyssa? Is that what you?
Yeah, I
Does
think
that
this
make sense?
slide is overly specific, and that's why I wanted
Okay.
I wanted to see how far you wanted to go with that. So,
Well,
okay,
I mean,
I
it
think
does
we're good.
say you've got to do inventory and you've got to follow your local
Mhm.
guidelines in terms of how you and your organization handle equipment. We always have IMLS ask us how we handle equipment on our end, and my answer is always we track who we give equipment to, and then it is on the libraries, and they have signed their lives away saying that they will treat this equipment as equipment. Cameron is asking about retroactive policy. So yes, if you bought something that was $5,000 and was last year considered equipment at $5,000, I think it is still considered equipment at $5,000, even though the threshold is now $10,000. I'm saying you don't get to retroactively not consider your $6,000 purchases equipment because it was equipment when you bought it. Did that make sense? Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
It's not grandfathered in and now suddenly everything is now $10,000. Yeah. Okay, I hope that made sense. If you have equipment and yeah, just ask us.
Okay. I think we're good. I wanted to make sure we got that in there before Sulin had to leave. So, the risk assessment is another part of what gets submitted. We don't have anybody in here who we would consider high risk. So I'm going to skip over this one to make sure we have enough time on some other things. Now, your GIA, if you have not seen the GIA, if you are not the same person who submitted it, I think it's really important that you look at one. It contains your grant number, it contains the project dates. So you're going to want to make sure that you have created a calendar for yourself, that the timeline that you have for your project matches absolutely what the hard and fast dates are in your GIA. It will tell you when the mid mid-year report and the final report are due. All of this is also on our website, unless it's specific to you, like your grant number. But the GIA is the source of truth. So please read through it. It's 2 pages long. Very important to also keep a copy of it in your files to be able to refer to. And we'll talk about retention, paperwork retention rules in a little while too. All right, if you need to do a project revision, if you need to make a material change from what your grant application was, what it was approved for, what your budget that you submitted with it is, you need to contact us. So budget adjustments that are more than 10% of any budget category and significant adjustments to any of your activities need to be submitted on a project amendment form. Again, on the LibGuide. So this is what that form looks like, and it actually gets attached to your GIA. It is a contract amendment. So you'll have your reason, we'll change the budget down here, everybody signs it. We'll need a little bit of a narrative explaining it. So if you have any need for that, contact me, we will go through it. No approval is needed if budget adjustments are less than 10% of any budget category or minor adjustments. So I think the best thing to do is if you're going to make a change and you're not sure if it's a major or a minor adjustment, just email me. And I'm probably going to make you document it in email if you send me a phone call, unless we decide, oh, it's very, very minor, don't worry about it, because we're going to save that email and put it in your project file to document that change so that everybody is covered. Okay, and then here's the email address, also all over the website, all over the paperwork. When you send it to this, it goes to our entire department, so it gets filed. All right, the fun part, the community grants portal is where you are going to do all of your reporting and your reimbursement and reconciliation transactions, which we'll talk about in a minute. But the reporting, your mid-year report for this grant is due on March 31st, and your final report is due December 1st of 2026. So we've got just over a year. Your project end dates is September 30th of next year. So you've got about 11 months to get your project done. For reimbursement requests, we request that you do it in a timely manner, and you need to report your match on those documents as well. I'll go over that in a few minutes. But the reimbursement requests, by timely manner, we usually recommend that you do it at least quarterly, because what happens when you don't do it very often is your library is carrying those costs and the money is sitting here waiting to be spent on it. So don't make your libraries carry the costs, okay? Submit it as quick as you can. You can do as many reimbursement requests as you want. I wouldn't do them weekly because I think our financial person or assistant would be a little fraught with that, but it would quarterly I think is good. All right.
I'd like to add one more reason to do timely reimbursements. With IMLS funding, so precarious, it's very evident to the feds that state of Nevada hasn't drawn down enough money. We don't draw down money until we give it to you, right? So the longer you hold on to it, the longer it takes us to request funding, the more it looks like to the feds that we don't need the funding. So think about that.
Yeah, we don't like that. All right. So if you have received an advance payment, you're going to do a reconciliation report. And in a minute, I'll show you how these work, but they are in our portal, they work exactly the same way. And there's been some confusion about that in the past, but I got an advance payment, why am I clicking on reimbursement? And it's because the way our portal works is that it's exactly the same process. So I've changed the language a little bit on a few things to make sure that that's very clear, because we've really just started doing advance payments on a more regular basis. So let's go back to the reports. So the mid-year report, you're going to be reporting, do you feel this grant is helping you and to better serve your customers? Are you on track? Is your project on track for your timeline, for your budget? and you're going to summarize your activities. If you're not on track, you're going to talk about your obstacles and any solutions that you have on working towards that. Any changes you've made, have you had to pivot on anything? And you're going to do a budget, actual budget up to that point. So you're going to need to include the money that you've spent and what you have spent so far reporting on your match. So another reason to do reimbursement and reconciliation fairly quickly, because by the mid-year report, if you haven't done any of that, you don't have any of that information to report. And that also doesn't look good. All right, so please stay on top of it. All right, the final report. So it mirrors the application. So I'm going to show you a template real quick of the final report. This is not what you're going to submit. This is on our website, on the 2025 website. This is a Word form there, or a Word document there that you can use to fill out and type what you want to do, and then you're going to copy and paste it into the portal. Don't fill out this document and give it to us, because I'll just send it back and say, I'm sorry, this is the template and you need to put it in our portal. And the reason we have you do that is because it helps to aggregate the data. It keeps it all in one location. We just had a cyber attack and our files don't need to have this in there. We want to have it in the portal and then saved into our files so that things are duplicated and we have a good retention of our records. So the final report contains basically the same thing that your application did. Project overview, you're going to choose what IMLS intent, what LSTA goal you are meeting, the subjects of your projects, who your target audience is, any partners that you've used, and then it gets down into the activities. And I wanted to show you this because as you are doing your project, you need to be gathering your data every time you do an activity. If you don't do your surveys, if you don't write yourself some notes every time you've done an activity, going back and doing the final report is going to be very difficult. So take a look at this final report now so that you know what you need to be tracking in your activities as you start conducting your project. All right. You're also going to have in there, you're going to have a final and actual budget. So budget and then what you actually spent on it, what your match was. Other things that you need to be gathering: photos, publicity, articles, evidence that you promoted, sustainability. How are you planning your sustainability? How's that going? Right? There's a little bit more for planning and assessment projects. And so, Chrissy, we can go over that. We can go over your specific final report separately. All right, so, oh, I don't know how that text ended up there. Just ignore that. Pretend it's not there. So on your final report, use your application, be familiar with it. If you didn't submit the application, get it and read through it so that you know what you're supposed to be doing for the project and tracking for your outcomes. All right. Gather up your project recommendations and responses. That was information that we gave to you to, I guess, as an amendment to your application before we gave you the GIA. Make sure you have that so that that's included in your final report, those adjustments that we made together, your mid-year report. Start by reviewing everything that you said that you were going to do, and then describe what you actually did, how you did it, include everything that you did. The more specific you can be, the better. We take all of your language and we'll tweak it a little bit, but it goes into our final report that is some crazy amount. I've got it over here, and I think it's like 100 pages long when I printed it out. So we report on all of your activities in our final report to IMLS. So this isn't just going into a portal for, to as documentation. It actually gets used, and then the SPRs are also publicly available and people can search it. It's a great place, by the way, to find ideas for other projects that people are doing. If you ever want that link, let me know. All right. Whoops, did I skip one? Yeah. Okay. Additional recommendations. I love how Sulin says this. Your reports, including your budget summary, should allow anyone, including elected officials, key there, right? We need to show that this money is actually having an impact. So please write these as if it was going to be read by someone to judge whether the LSTA program is worthy, all right? Should be allow anyone, anywhere, in any context to understand what you have accomplished, right? And don't forget photos, all the human side of things, anecdotal stories. How did this project impact your community? How did it change someone? Right? We want to hear those things. So best thing is please record them as you go along. Make notes in your phone if you have to, just so that you've got a file somewhere to jog your memory when it comes time to do the final report. All right, the fun part, the money part, reimbursements. So your reimbursements get compared to your budget that you sent in your application. So we need your reimbursements to match up with those line items in your budget. If they don't, you need to contact us and we need to do a project amendment and figure out what it is that's going on and why it's not going to match up. Okay, but better than that, please, as you are making your purchases, make sure that you are aware of what is on your budget, what category it is, and keep good records. All right. These are the budget categories on the budget. Whoops, forgot to change this. Equipment over 10,000. Okay. This is last year's slide. We didn't get it changed to 10K, but our budget form does say 10K. All right. So again, any changes over 10% must be approved. Submit a project amendment request. Please don't submit a project amendment request without talking to me first. It's better to just do it once, talk about it first, come up with a plan, and then submit it. All right?
So Elspeth has a question, Alyssa.
Oh,
How do tariffs fit into the cost not matching?
so if there's been an increase from the time that you submitted the grant until now, I'm not sure, Celine, how we would handle that.
So
I
the
mean,
big answer is that it really doesn't. A plus or minus, I mean, if you say you're going to spend $100 and you spend $120, we don't care as long as you're buying what you said you were going to buy. I'm going to buy a TV and I buy the $200 TV instead of the $300 TV, right? It doesn't matter. As long as your intent is the same, your object is pretty much the same, right? We do have some issues though if that category changes more than 10% because that's changing the contract. You're contractually allowed to buy $5,000 in the supplies and materials category. You have a lot of wiggle room within there, but not if it goes over 10%. So yeah, it's fine. Unless the tariffs are gonna like blow your budget out of the water, then we have to figure out ways to fix things.
If we decide to omit a category, do we also need to submit a project adjustment thing?
Because then you're zeroing it out. And then
Okay.
if you're zeroing it out, it feels like maybe the intent and the outcomes might be affected.
Okay.
Yeah. But
definitely we can have conversations about that specifically and work through it so you have a plan before you start purchasing. So that's the time to try to figure all that out. If you think things are going to change before you get into the purchasing, let's have a meeting. Okay. When you submit your reimbursement or reconciliation, you have required backup documentation and invoices, receipts. We need to not only see that you ordered something, but that it was paid and received. All right, so full copies of all of that. The state does not reimburse sales tax. You should all have your sales tax exemption because you're nonprofits. So please make sure you give it to your vendors so that they remove it from the invoice, because if you don't, we'll just disallow it. And then you've got an accounting problem that your accounting people are not going to be happy about. So do that up front. Make sure they have your sales tax exemption form. All right. different counties, different libraries do this different ways. But if the invoice does not say paid in full or have a credit card payment down at the bottom, like the star 3414 with the credit card showing that it was paid by credit card, we need a proof of payment. So copies of checks, financial software printouts, for the most part, your accounting people should absolutely know how to do this. If not, let me know. For those of you who are counting salaries in your grant for match, please make sure that you're using the time and effort forms. Those are also linked on the website under the reimbursement section, and it's a spreadsheet that keeps track of everybody's hours that is being reimbursed from this grant so that we know what they are doing. And we can have a quick meeting about time and effort and what you put on that, okay, based on what you claim your salaries are being used for. All right. Well, these are the things actually that are going to be on the time and effort, but we can talk more about it. It's a little bit beyond the scope of this because it's uber specific. So your match, there's a column on the reimbursement form that actually, let me pull up a reimbursement form. That would probably be a bit better here. So this is the manage your grant section. Huge section here on reimbursement and reconciliation, okay? And an explanation of which form you use and how you do it. So everything goes through the portal. But here's the reimbursement request form. So let's go ahead and open that up. Excel opens very slowly around here. Okay. So down here we have our tabs, instructions. Here's an example that has been put together for you. Your reimbursement. So you're going to have your budget category, whether it's salaries or materials or equipment, who you paid it to, what you bought, the invoice number, the amount you want to be reimbursed. And here, sometimes you'll be buying things that are under your match category. And so you'll put it here. All right. And these formulas add up for you. All right, here's a page 2 if you need it. So what you're going to do when you create one of those, let's see. I'll go back to that best practices thing in a second, is in the portal. You log into your portal and you're going to click on reimbursements, even if it's a reconciliation. The reconciliation form is slightly different than the one I sent you or that I just showed you, but it works exactly the same way. You click on reimbursements. Oh, I'm getting kind of out of order here. Here's the instructions for doing the reimbursements. But you click on create edit transaction. You'll scroll down to the bottom. You'll see all of your projects here. Once you select the project that you want to, because some of you have more than one LSTA project. Once you click on your project, you scroll to the bottom, create an edit transaction. And you're only going to do, each reimbursement is one transaction. So you put the total amount that you have at the bottom of that spreadsheet with all of your invoices. You don't create a transaction for each invoice that you are putting on the reimbursement. It's the total amount of that reimbursement. So say $8,000 and then you have 6 invoices that you have on there. You're going to put $8,000 here, your grant number, and then you're going to upload that spreadsheet that I just showed you, and then copies of all the backup that go with it. Okay, upload it, and then you hit save changes at any time you're working on this, and then you submit the transaction. Okay, but you just do one transaction for each reconciliation or reimbursement request. Do we have any questions? I think that ended up being a little more confusing than I had hoped it would be. All right, so I think we talked about these things already. Reconciliations, we require them to be submitted within 2 months of spending the money. So if we send you an advance payment and you spend the money, we need your reconciliation to be submitted to us within 2 months of when you actually use the money. I recognize that we may send it to you and it might take you 3 months to spend it, but it's not when we send it to you, it's within 2 months of when you actually spent the funds. All right. So when we do reports for reimbursements and reconciliations, you click here. For your reports, you're going to click on Update. We have the report templates on the LibGuide. I showed you one of those. Here's a link to the community grants portal. It looks like this. If you are a project manager without a login to this, please contact me and I'm happy to do that. Some of you are doing the project management, but you're not going to be doing the reports and the financial side. That's fine if you're not and you have somebody there to do that for you. You don't need an account for this. You just need to be making sure that you're keeping good records for the person who is going to be submitting the reports. Okay, so you click on Update. These are all I have. This is mine. So I get to see a whole bunch of different ones. I create test ones a lot. So the reports are going to be over here. And click on this. And here's the different reports that are available for it. And yes, there's 3 for this because I was playing with it, trying to figure it out at one point. But you'll only have one and it'll say final report or mid-year report. So your grant will, the final reports aren't up there yet. Actually, the mid and final reports are not up there for the 2025 ones, but you'll see these for your 2024 grants. You go over here and you click on this and it starts into the report. Those templates take you section by section by section through each one of these in the report. So I highly recommend, especially for the final report, that you use the final report template, work on it, get it all completed, and then go in and copy and paste your sections into the portal. All right. All right, surveys. So we are required to conduct surveys throughout the year. Every time you do an activity, IMLS requires a survey of some sort. Now we try not to have survey fatigue. You can do like if summer reading program is your activity, you don't have to do a survey at every single little event that you have. I would be strategic about it. Try to survey at the beginning, the middle, and the end, but come up with a plan beforehand instead of the day of when you start your project about how you're going to survey, who you're going to survey, and what the surveys are going to be. Now, we have an entire page here. I'll show you. In your manage your grants page. Down here somewhere is here, required surveys. And I have a whole page on that, okay? That's this. We give you the required surveys. These are the questions that are required by IMLS. You can't change this. You have to ask these questions. You can add to it, but you can't edit or remove the required questions. So over here, we have given you the different survey forms that you can edit to be what you need them to be. And they're Word docs so that you can edit them. Sorry, things are opening very slowly here today. So I don't remember which one I clicked on to open up. This is the instruction programming for the public. So you can do this on a piece of paper that you hand out. You can have it be in a web form, a Google form, you know, something that they click on an iPad on their way out. Just make sure that you are consistent with how you do it. All right, so the different forms are here. I'll get to the final report forms in just a minute. Here's when you need to survey. Okay, so the only time you survey the public is if you're doing an instructional program. You survey your staff, your library workforce, if you're acquiring content, if you're doing content creation, planning and evaluation grants. Okay, and we can talk more about that. Get back to that. Here's how it works. When you gather these surveys, you are going to aggregate that data into a reporting form. right here for the final report. Okay, so and you may have multiple of these for each program that you do. You're going to have, if you do 4 programs throughout the year, you'll have 4 of these aggregated forms. You don't turn in all the surveys to us. Okay, you aggregate the data from your surveys and create one of these reports. Does that make sense? Okay. Meaningful results, use your best judgment. Yeah. All right. Publicity. Anytime that you have anything on social media, please tag IMLS. We have a few examples here, but on that web page that we have the link to on the LibGuide, we've got a lot more of their social media that you can tag. You need to, if you would please, take a screenshot to document it for the final report that you tagged them in your social media promotional posts. If you're having an event, invite us, tag the state library, send your press releases to us. We will put it up on our website. We will help with promotion. Again, back to the IMLS credit, make sure you're doing that. Okay, get to skip that one. Records retention. So we have, we're in the LSTA plan period of 2023 to 2027. During that time, all of your records, so last year's grants, this year's grant files, all of those you need to retain until January 31st, 2032, and then we start over. You have to retain everything for 3 years after our current plan cycle. So this is the date, 2032, that you need to keep them. So it can be electronic. This doesn't have to be physical files, but please keep each year's grant separate in a file with all of the documents, so that you can take the grant 2402 and have all of the documents in it, rather than mixing your grant application in all of your grant applications. It's best to keep it all in one file, and then you can have it broken down into subcategories like this, so that it's easy. If we ask you for your records for 2402, you don't have to separate it all out from all of your other documents, LSTA documents. I hope that makes sense. I feel like that makes sense. All right, so here's a survey. I'm going to put this in the chat. This is, whoops. We need to be doing the survey even for this webinar because it is hosted, or it is paid for through LSTA funds. So I will put that in the chat. And if you all could quickly do that when you get a minute. This is an example of a way to conduct a survey. All right, and it looks like we are just about out of time. And I've got just one more slide, I think. So here's my contact information. All of you should have that. Any paperwork that you send, if you are sending it to me, please also put this email address so that it goes to our department. That means that Nina grabs it, and Nina is the filing queen and she keeps track of everything. So on that note, I'm going to stop the recording.